So why do we have a problem looking after our parents? Let's interrogate that.
So I'd say, if I was looking into the mind of a young person today, between 18 and 25, I would say that their issue towards not being there for their parents and having tiffs and whatever.
This video is sponsored by Chai Pani Blackburn, the hottest place to get your carrot chai in South Asian street foods. Open from early and closes late means you'll never miss out on all your favorite foods. With a great indoor seating area with friendly staff at your service to a large shared car park with a drive-through style attendant taking your order, so you don't have to leave the comfort of your vehicle. It's a perfect spot to meet and catch up with friends, so make sure you head down to Chai Pani Blackburn in partnership with Brain Cells Squared.
Does a lot of it fall back to having different mindsets between them? So,
can I just ask a question, basically a question? So, my granddad, he told me this one thing I still remember to this day. He goes, however you treat your parents, your children will treat you the same way.
Very good point.
So like, as a kid, I never understood that. Now that I'm older, however my father was with my granddad, I'm the same with my father.
Yeah.
And it's like you realize, obviously I know it's not the point, but it just came to my mind, like, is that an actual thing?
Yeah. So this is because people learn through example, don't they? So one of the things I saw my father do is look after his mother. And I saw that until the end. As a kid, I used to be there with my dad, go to the hospital. I saw that as a kid. And that inevitably is going to have an impact on you.
Yeah, it's
because you've seen it.
Yeah.
You've seen it with your own eyes that this is what my dad did, this is what my parents did, and therefore you're going to follow suit, aren't you?
Yeah.
So without a doubt, that's how human beings learn. Human beings learn more through example than they do through speech.
Yeah.
You can tell people 100 things, they're not going to listen to you.
No,
but through example, people learn. When you practice something, people
example,
learn through that example, don't they?
But also that's a valid point as well, that obviously parents haven't taught it to them because they've just left them and do what you want kind of thing. But also what I would feel is, if I'm thinking about it, if we're talking about the interrogation side of it, that a lot of it becomes that they're not agreeing on points.
Yeah.
And these are points where they both parents and youngsters have to say, we're never going to agree because we're both from different eras.
Of course.
But we have to find a common middle ground.
So what we've got is we've got parents coming from Eastern culture, which is a collectivist culture. You've got children coming from Western culture, which is an individualist culture. And therefore, how can you reconcile the two? You can't reconcile the two. It's not possible to reconcile the two. So what you have to then do is try and find a happy medium. And that's where the problem is. So the problem with our generation looking after parents, many a time, is the expectations that parents may have of their children. So what's the relationship? So Islamically, what's the relationship between a father and their children and their child, their son, their daughter? What's the relationship Islamically? Is that a relationship of two autonomous individuals who have responsibilities towards each other? So every person is responsible for themselves, but we have responsibility towards each other. Islamically, there's hukuk, there's rights. Or are the parents owners of the children? You see, are parents owners of the children Islamically, or parents and children are autonomous individuals who both have hukuk and rights towards each other? It's the second one, isn't it? That's significant culturally, isn't it? Because culturally, the notion is parents own the child. This is the problem.
That's 100%.
Do you see the problem?
I think you have to give and take between parents and...
So if your starting point is parents own the children, how are children going to react to that?
True.
They're never going.
it's not going to work, is it? The
rebellious,
relationship's not going to work.
No.
Because that's your starting point. So Islamically, this is very important to understand. That parents don't own their children. Parents have certain rights and children have certain rights, and there's a responsibility of birrul walidain specifically on the children, which needs to be understood and emphasized. That you have to be good towards your parents, you have to care for your parents. There's a specific responsibility that children have towards the parents. So there's a hierarchy there.
Of course.
That in society the parents are superior to the children. There's a hierarchy there, but that hierarchy is not absolute. It's not absolute ownership over the children.
Exactly.
There's a difference.
Yeah.
Children are still autonomous individuals.
Because I've heard very cultural parents say to their children, you shouldn't talk to me like that. I'm your father, I'm your parent, which is true. But if a parent is wrong and they've said something wrong or done something wrong, and you as a young adult, 18 to 25, maybe even 30, you should, like you're saying, hukuk, you should have a right. That one of the rights is saying, no mom, no dad, that's not the right way of doing it. And now, as a parent, the parent should say, khalas, no, that's true, I did wrong there.
Yeah, so this is where it gets complicated. So Islamically, another thing which ulama have written about is that when it comes to hukuk, rights, when we talk about rights of parents, there's three kinds of rights in Islam. So you've got hukukullah, rights of Allah, which we're familiar with. Then you have hukukul ibad, rights of the servants or rights of human beings or rights of others. Yeah, so you've got rights of others. So when we talk about birrul walidain and being good to parents, or hukukul walidain, the rights of the parents falls under hukukul ibad, rights of the servants. That's what it falls under Islamically. But our understanding is more often than not reduced to this: the hukukullah, hukukul ibad. And therefore hukukul walidain, rights of the parents, fall under hukukul ibad, rights of others. And therefore the only time that you don't listen to your parents is when it contradicts the rights of Allah. Then there is no obedience. La ta'ata li makhluq fi ma'siyatil khaliq. There's no obedience to the creation in the disobedience of the creator. So that's the only time that you don't listen to parents, otherwise you have to listen to your parents. It's a very simplistic understanding of Islam. That's generally the understanding, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you have hukukullah, rights of Allah, rights of the servants, in particular in this context, rights of parents. Rights of parents, you have to obey your parents unless it contradicts the rights of Allah. That's it. Khalas. Finished. Very simplistic understanding that people have. However, ulama, especially the ulama who have written extensively and dealt with the nuances of these issues, specifically them ulama have explained that you also have hukukun nafs, rights of the self. And where do they get that idea from? From a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he says, inna li nafsika alayka haqqa. Indeed, yourself has a right over you. So you have to balance these three kinds of hukuk: rights of Allah, rights of the servants, in this context rights of the parents, and then rights of the self. You can't ignore rights of the self. And the problem occurs, the reason why people get put off many a time from looking after their parents is because their hukuk aren't being looked after in the process.
Yeah.
That's what puts them off. And that's the danger of collectivist culture. That a collectivist culture overlooks the rights of the self, as opposed to the individualist culture, which overemphasizes the rights of the self.
It's a balance, isn't it?
You've got to have a balance between them all. Yeah, you're right.
So this is the issue. So you have to, when people don't practice Islam, you don't tell them to practice Islam.
Sure.
You try and understand why they're not practicing Islam. What's stopping them? What are the barriers?
Right.
And you interrogate them barriers and say, okay, that's the barrier. Okay, how do we understand that differently? How can we change our perspective on that? So if we have a problem with care for parents, we don't just say, oh, care for your parents. Rather, we try and understand why people are not doing it.
Yeah.
Do you see,
And
that's
essentially that's what we've
intelligent
just done, because how you've structured that is that doesn't just cover the example that I give, but it covers all sorts of different examples. Whereas, for example, parents choosing favourites when they were younger, which means when they're older, the non-favourite to say doesn't want nothing to do with the parents, kind of thing. So that also falls under the rights for desire, rights for your own self. So a lot of the issues could be sorted, plainly speaking, or could be sorted if this third category was thought of.
Yes.
Not thought of. It was
Factored in.
Factored in. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If we go slightly into hukukun nafs, then, what does that actually entail? Is that just rights for yourself as a parent or as a child?
Okay. So let's apply it to this context of parents. But how is hukukun nafs relevant? So the idea is obedience to parents is absolute, pretty much, unless it contradicts the rights of Allah. That's the popular notion and understanding that Muslims have, generally speaking. The average Muslim, their understanding is you can't disobey your parents unless they're telling you to disobey Allah. Simple. However, it's not as simple as that. The ulama who've written and explored the nuances of this subject, they've mentioned that you have to factor in hukukun nafs. Therefore, not only is hukukul ibad, and in this context hukukul walidain, circumscribed by the rights of Allah, but they also circumscribed by the rights of the self. So the rights of the self put limits on the rights of the parents. So when you say obedience to parents, you have to obey your parents. What the ulama who have dealt with this subject in depth and with exploring the nuances, what they've said is that the hukukun nafs have to be factored in, and therefore obedience to parents is only applicable when there's a threat to one's own life or to the threat and the well-being of the life of the parents. So for example, when it comes to khidmah of the parents, so you have a duty Islamically to do khidmah of your parents and to make provisions for the khidmah of your parents, to look after your parents, to serve your parents. Anything that interferes with that is wrong. That's an obligation upon you. But beyond that, not everything is obligatory. So if your parents tell you to divorce your wife, is that obligatory?
No, of course not.
So if we said that obeying your parents, the only thing that can put limits on it is the rights of Allah, then how do we explain this issue? How do we explain this case of when your parents tell you to divorce your wife? Then we would have to say, if we apply that principle to its logical conclusion, then you have to divorce your wife. So why are we saying that in that context it's not obligatory to divorce your wife? Why are we saying that? Because hukukun nafs.
No, it's more, man.
Do you see?
Yeah.
This is a deeper understanding of the subject, isn't it? It's not the what I refer to as pop Islam. Pop Islam is rights of parents. Yeah, you have to obey your parents unless they tell you to do something which is disobeying Allah. That's pop Islam.
It's deeper than that.
It's much deeper than that. I've explored. And the ulama who are muhaqqiqeen, who are experts in this field, explore these nuances. They tell you that, there's much more to it than meets the eye. So we have to raise our level of knowledge.
This is where the Salafis fall short, because they obviously they cut out many years of scholars. And if they were to, like you said, pop Islam, they'd go right back to Quran and Sunnah, and they derive everything themselves, and they've had,
but in this case, it's not just the Salafiyya, generally, Muslims in general, when it comes to this subject, don't have a proper understanding of the nuances.
That's what I mean, that obviously, who were the ones that, this isn't in Quran and Sunnah, this is derived from the understanding that ulama over the years have built.
Absolutely. So it shows the value of tradition.
So it shows the value of thing.
Yeah, of course.
Tradition is good, just depending on how it's applied and where it's applied.
Yes.